Good evening.
Everywhere I go on this island, it seems to me I find degeneracy.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes. See, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive, Sid.
We have a bargain.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
Do you feel the pain? Oh, it's the pain I can assure you will be exquisite.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
His entire work consists of violence, all the time. Obsessed with the issue of violence. Mayhem, gouging out of eyes, autopsies on the stage.
Come. It is time to keep your appointment.
And good evening, vampire appreciators. I hope you are well. This is episode 161 of Double Feature Horror Show, and the third part of our classic horror arc. Crikey, let's try and get that right. You voted for this, folks. Last week, I said we were going to delve into the later end of Hammer. Still very much classic Hammer, still very much what we associate with Hammer, but very distinct from those early days. Certainly an exaggeration, certainly building upon what we had before. We have got the classic studios. We've got the Central European location. We've got Peter Cushing. We've got some fine fillies. And we've got a very undecided attitude shooting around everyone in the cast. Are we doing accents? Guys, are we doing accents? Are you going to do a Central European accent? I was gonna do it.
No.
Yeah, it's a toss-up, isn't it? Every single one of them. Roll the die. Are you doing an accent or not? And it's every single one. They mix it up. Some people clearly were just like, nah.
Well, an Austrian accent is much easier than for most people than, say, a Slavic accent. But,
yeah, I mean, I'd have appreciated a bit of Austrian. We all like a bit of Austrian around here, don't we, guys? You know, wouldn't you like to hear Peter Cushing doing the old Skidoodle, Skidandel? Dein Hoden geht zum Wandeln. Skidandel, Skidudel. Dein Schwanz ist jetzt ein Nudel. You know, the classic stuff. Just those sort of... Imagine if he did that as a warm-up exercise before a take.
Oh, boy.
Sorry. Little treat for everyone. So we gave you the choice for this slightly saucier era of Hammer. Do you want the Vampire Lovers or do you want Twins of Evil? And it turns out you were very in favour of the old Ingrid Pitts. And you're going to get a lot of her.
Ooh.
Oh, yes, yeah. Let me guess. Albrecht Dürer, am I right? Yeah? It's got to be Dürer. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. We're good. Murgy, you are joining me once again for this arc. How are you liking it?
Hammer's great. I mean, I haven't been rating it very highly, but the movies as a whole are average, but just it's the cultural thing about Hammer, the cult following that it has, and just the nostalgia of it. The almost... I can't say innocent, but just the way it's done has a classic feel to it.
Yeah, I could massively go with that. This sort of came up with TCG last week, where he, I think he liked it, but he definitely said it. Well, he said it wasn't scary and it was too theatrical. And I think that was more. Hammer is definitely a vibe that I wouldn't say particularly is scary. Generally, it's cozy. And there's just this strong atmosphere to it that is quite absorbing, quite reassuring. And there's a lot in it that I think, how can I say, really speaks to the Anglo. Like in this film particularly, there is so much that is like, you know, manor house, reassuring in like the manor house settings, the Regency rituals, who the authority figures are, what the takeaway lessons are. You know, it's all cozy and reassuring.
Mm-hmm.
But was this the first viewing for you?
I saw it a long time ago, and I didn't remember much of anything aside from Peter Cushing. So it's I remembered Twins of Evil more. And I have to say this, well, we'll get into it later. A comparison between this and Twins of Evil and its effectiveness as a film.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to do that later, or do you want to discuss Twins of Evil now and sort of?
We'll do it later.
We'll do it later. Okay, folks, we'll have a Twins of Evil discussion later. Mergut and I did also watch Twins of Evil. I invited you, you know, you can watch that too. If you did watch both of them, I would love to know which one you preferred. There is quite the unanimous preference here amongst us on stream for Twins of Evil. There are 4 good things that I think Twins of Evil really had going for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I jest, but genuinely, I massively prefer Twins of Evil, and I thought it was possibly going to be scraping the barrel. I worried it would be tawdry. I worried it would be, you know, like the sort of late Carry On vibes.
No, I'm not too familiar with Carry On.
Oh, okay.
I know what the movies are, but they had the same type of rotating cast and in different situations, but that's about all I know.
It's a great comparison point. Leslie Russell voting for Twins of Evil, and it was the right choice. Let's see. But we'll cover that at the end. We'll make our comparisons at the end. That might be easier. For now, we will we don't have a topic this week. We're just going to move into discussing the Vampire Lovers. However, I remember at this point I have a few things I have to do before we get into that. One is announcing the horror homework in advance. You guys should know this. I mentioned it a few times, but there's no way that we could finish this arc without covering The Devil Rides Out. Like we have to give ourselves an occasion for Christopher Lee to absolutely steal the show and get to do a lot more. I mean, in Dracula, he did a fair amount, but he stopped getting lines after 10 minutes. So, you know, we're going to do. So we'll give him a chance to shine next week in The Devil Rides Out. So that is your horror homework for next week. The Devil Rides Out. There we go. Will we get one more in? I'm undecided because I think I might try and finish the Vincent Price stuff this week. This arc, terrible. So we'll see where we go because there's a couple of newer movies I kind of want to react to. The second is thing we'll do is, of course, the Shilling. This YouTube channel that takes a fair amount of effort, fair amount of investment. I like to get my research material from which I will be reading tonight, and it really helps when people support the channel. I really appreciate it. It helps me justify doing this, and you can support the channel via super chats, as I see one fantastic person already has, or my preferred way is via memberships either here on YouTube or on Subscribestar. Subscribestar may be slightly better. They take a smaller cut, but either way is really appreciated. And the best thing about the memberships is that I can actually give you exclusive content. You can vote on the next arc incoming and do your bit to stop horror and the erotic being selected. The threat is never that far away, guys. I mean, you can see it's encroaching on us even now. One day we're going to have to cover it. And I've also got there's a fair amount of bonus content coming your way in October, as you may expect from Halloween. So there we go. Much appreciated if you want to support the channel. It lets me unashamedly buy my copy of Hammer Glamour, the saucy photo book for the Hammer beauties.
Oh yeah.
So that is the old shilling. And Mergoot for yourself?
At Mergoot on X, and all the usual stipulations: geopolitics, science, humor, whatever suits my fancy. I still haven't picked up from when I was sick, but I'm getting sick of U.S. politics. Let's just say that.
Oh dear. Well, the ride ain't over for quite a while, I'm afraid, Mergoot.
Oh yeah, I know.
Adam Loves Horror has kicked everything off, sending $2 saying Christina Hendricks should do a remake. A shameless attempt from Adam to divert us onto Hendricks posting. Look, there's already a redhead with that sort of build on screen. Come on, do you need Hendricks? No, you resist the Hendricks vortex. We must stay away. But thank you very much for $2. I'm close to purchasing this now. I really shouldn't, but I might. Thanks again, Adam. All right, cool. So with that said, we will now get into 1970s The Vampire Lovers. Something that... Oh, hang on. Question coming in here. John Goris asking about Jess Franco's female vampire, aka bare-breasted countess. When? I've seen a chap called Jess Franco turn up on here. I have not seen a Jess Franco movie. I don't know. That sounds a little saucy. Little saucy, if you ask me. I don't know about that, John Goris. This is a family-friendly stream. So, we will move in to 1970s. The Vampire Lovers. This stood out to me the second it started. So hang on, what's going on here? Does that stand out to you much, Mergoot?
Yeah, American International. This is one of the last of the Hammer films that American International posted money with. They gave them a little bit more than what was asked for as a bonus, and it paid off well for them. Yes,
it certainly did. I mean, this was an absolute delight for me. We knew Hammer kind of kickstarted everything with American money when it reignited in the mid-50s. And it would move off American money after this. But this in particular is this is amazing, folks. If this isn't sort of going off like a firework for you, this is like the nexus of horror. This is like, crikey, this is like a Hell in the Cell match with Michael Myers, Jason, and Freddy. All the big boys of horror are here, right? Okay. So obviously we have Hammer. We have American International Pictures, so the Roger Corman affiliated outlet that was behind so many of the Vincent Price Poe cycles, now throwing money into a Hammer production. And there is someone else in the party from the third member, and that is Roy Ward Baker is there directing. Roy Ward Baker representing our boys at Amicus. You absolutely loved it. Okay, were Amicus actually involved? No. But two people very tied into Amicus were involved. Mostly Roy Ward Baker, but also, I believe, Ingrid Pitt rocked up. And I'm missing someone else. I think, didn't Madeleine Smith also do an Amicus movie?
I believe so.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a check. She was. I think she's going to be divisive. I want to see what chat thinks of Madeleine Smith, because I think your appreciation of it will probably depend. Let's see. Quick look. I think I think I'm wrong. I've given false information. I don't believe she was in an Amicus. Someone else was in an Amicus. It's going to drive me mad. She was, however, in a film we saw very recently. She was in Theatre of Blood. Very minor role, very minor indeed. Mostly background, to be honest, someone's family member. But it's nice to see her pop up. And she would, of course, later go on to be a Bond girl in Live and Let Die, only 3 years after this.
Yeah. And
I'll get
John
Madeleine
Forbes-
Smith on so you see who I'm talking about. Where is she? Now, she's looking a little bit like, is it Columbia? No, the other one from Rocky Horror.
Magenta.
Yeah? It's the eyebrows and the massive eyes, I think. Yes.
Yeah, the other one.
Choosing my comments carefully here.
Just a little bit of trivia. John Forbes Robertson played the Man in Black, the puppeteer of this whole film. He was the only other person to play Dracula in a Hammer film.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, which one did he do that in?
I'm not sure.
Oh, well, we'll have to look at that. So let's put this in. So we've got an interesting production situation whereby we basically have the three big boys of 60s and 70s horror all involved in one picture. That is Hammer, Amicus, and AIP. Yes, I am stretching it a bit for Amicus, but do forgive me, chat. And we have a film that is stretching the boundaries, certainly moving up. We've got a bit of a change here. So you notice we've got not Jimmy Sangster writing. We have basically skipped a decade here, more than a decade, actually, since our last film we covered, which was Dracula from 1958. We are now 12 years on. Jimmy Sangster is not writing this one, but I believe he maybe did the next in this trilogy. Was it Lust for a Vampire that he did? Should we have a little check? Let me quickly check that. Is Jimmy Sangster... Yes, it was. Jimmy Sangster directed Lust for a Vampire. There we go. Confirmed, chat. Confirmed. And we don't have Terence Fisher directing. We have Roy Ward Baker. We also don't entirely have Bray, or we don't have the most recognizable Bray. Not in this one. Now, this is part of the Karnstein trilogy, starting off with this, which is the closest adaptation of Carmilla. Let's confirm, was that 1900? So it was 1872, an 1872 Gothic novella by the Irish author Sheridan Le Fanu, predating, I should say, predating Dracula, about someone who is predating.
Yeah.
So very good source material, very interesting. And this would kick off, as I said, a trilogy called the Karnstein trilogy, all made between 1970 and 1971, with a slight mix-up in the production, certainly in those making it, a little bit of a variation in the cast, and a fair old variation in the style. I think the style is where we're going to see most of the change here. Does that sound about right, Murgu?
Yeah, this one's very bright. Lots of sunshine, lots of bright lighting, and it's not as gothic until the end.
No. I mean, some of the imagery we would expect is in there. You know, the castle, the mist, the medieval. We still got the medieval European setting. I shouldn't say medieval, maybe. History folks might have a trouble with me for that. But let's say pre-Regency Central European setting that they like to work with whilst keeping it a bit vague. But as you say, it's a bit brighter. There's also, I mean, I could not believe, folks, I wish I could just play you the footage on here, but you know how YouTube would literally kill the stream. But I would just want to contrast the intro. Curse of Frankenstein, think back 2 weeks. You just got a card with some text setting the scene, then straight into it. Dracula, a little bit of a voiceover. Sorry, I don't think we got a voiceover. We didn't get a title card, but we did get an ambitious opening sequence setting the scene, walking us up to the crypt. I will quickly get that.
Baron hunting the Karnsteins.
Yeah. Whereas this is the most ambitious opening sequence we've had. We've had a narration. We've had montage. And this goes on for quite a few minutes. Like, this is a proper, like a horror cold open, right?
Mm-hmm. We get the Baron immediately hunting the Karnsteins, and it's interesting. It kind of threw me off when I was watching it. It's okay. He kills the lady right off, and then decades later, the rest happens. Okay.
Yeah, you're there in medias res. It's more sophisticated. They're sort of expecting cinema goers to keep up. And then they've got this amazing shot. Like, for a start, this is just thrown out at the beginning. As was already said, as John Gorris has said, the decapitations were pretty damn grisly for the day. And they freeze frame on this. We hold on this decapitation while the blooming credits play over it. It's amazing. And did you notice, just I wish I could show it to you folks, but the sword goes down suddenly in focus, blood runs down the blade. That was cool. This is a lot of style for Hammer.
Yeah, it's well done for the time. The head model was fairly realistic. You could tell it was a dummy's head, but not. It wasn't blatant.
No, they also could go a lot further. Like, they didn't just show the sweep of the sword and the head roll off. They actually showed sword going into a neck, and then the head going off. Like, that's quite a lot. That's a big advancement in the kind of gore you can see. But it's not really the gore that might have caused this a bit of a problem. I mean,
the lesbian relationships caused everybody all their hearts to go at Twitter and talk and titillation, and it was a big selling point for the movie, but it ticked off the censors rather fiercely.
Titillation, indeed. Yes. I mean, naturally, I'm sure you and everyone else are just wondering, what did the British Board of Film Classification say about all this lady-on-lady entanglement?
They tried to remove it, of course, but they failed. Trevelyan was, from what I understand, Trevelyan was kind of ticked off about it. It was much too racy, much too lesbian for his tastes. And then what I understand, the director and producers all ganged up on him, and this follows Lefanu's Carmilla. You have to hold to the accuracy of it. And Trevelyan upset, he still backed off on it. That's as far as I know.
Indeed. Well, I can read to you directly from John Trevelyan, but we should also note this is some interesting interesting history in British cinema. It's not exactly, you know, a pioneer of sapphic portrayals. God. Mogu, I am just remembering that time I massively triggered a journo on Twitter.
Okay.
You remember this? Like, this was back when Fear Street came out, the Fear Street trilogy. And this, you know, to my mind, just some rando is gushing and saying like, oh my God, a lesbian couple in a horror movie, not just a horror movie, but a horror trilogy. Oh, this is groundbreaking. This is so cool. I was like, what about The Hunger? I mean, I should have said, what about this, you know?
What about The
I
Hunger?
suppose
What
that's
about
just,
The Howling 2?
yeah.
What about the Hammer trilogies?
These, I mean, she might say on this, oh, well, that's just predation. That's just predation. Oh, okay. What about Heavenly Creatures? Yeah. What about The Howling 2? Yeah, come on. But this journo freaked out instead of saying, yes, but this is a more healthy relationship where, you know, versus it, the relationship is there, but it's meant to be a source of it. Instead, she flipped out and was like, if you Google queer horror, my name and my article is the first to come up. Flipped out. Was very angry at me. Never said why I was wrong. Never answered any questions. Never responded to anything about those other movies. Stuck in my head. Anyway, as you said correctly, this was pushing the gate. Definitely pushing the boundaries. And Trevelyan was, if you go by the Wikipedia, they just say the argument Trevelyan accepts is that because the lesbianism is in the original story, it's fine, it's not exploitative. This is obviously a terrible argument. It's like, okay, if they're, you know, snorted K off off a hooker's back, is like, should we do that too? It's like, no. It's a stupid argument. Yes, some things in the book, but even so, even if you have to include that element, which you do not have to do when you do an adaptation, you can change anything you like. I mean, crikey, this is Hammer. Would we call their versions of Frankenstein and Dracula faithful?
Oh, hell no.
No. So why do we have to? No, you don't understand. The lesbian bath scene is essential to the story. You know. Nice try. Terrible argument. I think the real thing is basically at this point, Trevelyan was a victim of his own arguments. Specifically, and this is mentioned on the Wikipedia, about a film called The Killing of Sister George. Now, there was an interesting person in The Killing of Sister George. Madeleine Smith. So 2 years earlier, yes, she'd been in The Killing of Sister George, a film about involving nuns and a little bit of sapphism that caused quite the stir. But because they had let that through, they had sort of started the slippery slope of what they must permit. And chat, I know you're there. Chat, are you typing? The slippery slope is a fallacy. The slippery slope is a fallacy. I know you're all doing it, chat, because obviously we know the slippery slope has no basis in reality at all. Nothing is decided on that. Certainly, if you permit one thing, you don't then permit something, you know, I mean, there's certainly not a legal concept called precedent that is the basis, you know, but anyway, so just save yourself the carpal tunnel syndrome of all typing slippery slope is a fallacy. I'm kidding. I know you guys are smarter than that. But I'd like to read to you 2 pages from What the Censor Saw, John Trevelyan's memoirs of his time in office. And we should remember, 1970, he retired the next year. So he let this bad boy in and then was out. Why did he go out? I don't know. Maybe he knew a certain Clockwork Orange and Straw Dogs were coming down the line. He was like, I'm getting the heck out of here. All right. John. Yeah, slip and slide. The well-lubricated incline. He cracked me up, chat. All right, so forgive me. I'm going to read 2 pages from John Trevelyan's, I want to say 1975, might be 77 memoir, What the Censor Saw. And this is him on lesbians. Hang on. So I've just got to find my place. Oh, dear. Here we go. Right. So this is following him slipping down the old Sloperino and passing some very racy Swedish films. And having made that decision, by 1969, things were moving fast. The Danish woman director who had made 17 had made another film called Without a Stitch, which visualized the intimate diary of a young girl embarking on a sexual tour of Europe. And we had no hesitation in refusing a certificate. Robert Aldrich, the American director, made a film of the play, The Killing of Sister George, in which he had shot a most explicit lesbian love scene. This scene was easily removable since there was no backing of dialogue or music, so we removed it. Later, and he's saying that because back then, everything was printed on the same reel. So if they just cut bits out, suddenly the musical track will skip a bit and it will sound really awful.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice that this is also a terrible reason not to cut, because if you just hold that line, you warn studios, and then they're less likely to put stuff in because they know you will hold. Anyway, we won't get drawn into it. Later, on appeal, the Greater London Council allowed part of the scene. Eventually, we accepted a modified version. Ken Russell, the British director, made Women in Love from the D.H. Lawrence novel. We thought this a fine film, a view that was shared by the critics and the public, and although there were strong and explicit sex scenes, we passed it without cuts. This film included a remarkably brilliant scene in which 2 young men wrestled naked. We had to consider this carefully, but decided to pass it. In a sense, this was a milestone in censorship, since male frontal nudity was still a rarity. We had little criticism, possibly because of the film's undoubted brilliance. We also had problems with Candy, an American film with the French director Christian Marquand, which was not distinguished either in quality or taste, but we were at least relieved that it was not a faithful representation of the American edition of the book. If you caught that, folks, that was, we allowed quite a lot of explicit material in a film that was high quality. And then, because we'd done that, we allowed something in a film of low quality. Are we slipping? Are we sloping? I think we slippy sloping. By 1970, things were moving yet again. And the financial success of the pornographic market in the United States was not unnoticed by some of the American major companies, especially by those whose financial position was not good. 20th Century Fox moved towards pornography with 2 films, Mario Breckenridge, in which there was symbolic buggery, a scene which we had to cut, and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls made for them by Russ Meyer, who had experience of the other market. We had to cut this film extensively, particularly in its last half hour, which could be described as an essay in the pornography of sex and violence. As it turned out, these films were not commercially successful, so both in the United States and in Britain, they were shown as a double bill. And right. I'm going to skip a bit, guys. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Most of these films were deplorably bad, but this did not lessen their sales. France, which had been the home of the X-certificate bed scene, gave us few problems. The puritanical influence of President de Gaulle based has had its effect on film production. However, a director, Radley Metzger, who worked in the United States, made a French film called Thérèse and Isabelle, which showed more explicit lesbian sex scenes than we had seen before. More explicit even than the scene in The Killing of Sister George, with the result that the film had been regarded in New York as sensational and had therefore been a commercial success. To our surprise, we thought it a film with some quality and sincerity. I bet you did. We felt obliged to cut more explicit sex scenes, but we passed more than we had in previous films. Slippery sloping. Strangely enough, it was not a big commercial success in this country. Perhaps homosexuality does not have much appeal to British cinema audiences. I was always told by distributors that no film about homosexuality, except the British film Victim, which was a thriller with a background of homosexual blackmail, had ever made money in this country. Certainly in 1970, Boys in the Band, an American film in which male homosexuality was explicit verbally, and which was a film of a play that had been a great success in London, had most disappointing results. We had not found it necessary to cut it because we believed the adult public would, with few exceptions, accept it. I had no complaints, but obviously it was not an attraction. Right, there we go. That's John Trevelyan. So you'll notice a certain amount of slippery sloping. And we should say, Trevelyan is not really having a problem with it. He tends to say it's more, I don't mind it, but the public probably wouldn't go for it. However, if you put it in an art film, it's fine. However, having passed it for an art film, he will then say, I have to be consistent. And in the wide release, he then allows it. That tends to be the Trevelyan method. I'm going to sort of calm myself down here, and I mustn't get into the BBFC talk because I realise we're quite far into the stream already. Tell you what, I'll just chill, folks. If you want me to talk about the BBFC, have a really fun conversation, I have a talk with Harry on the Lotus Eaters about the history of the BBFC. If you want to hear a bit more, rather than go back into the history of these streams in which I tortured people over, I think, 8 parts. Let's see. I just want to notice why I've seen this. Okay, Adam Lazara has pledged $15 for the book, Hammer Glamour. Thank you so much. Yes. Sweet. We're going to get Hammer Glamour. Folks, if you want to pitch in so I can get Hammer Glamour, you know, very gratefully received. And there's also another book exclusively on Hammer I'm thinking of. So donations tonight will go towards that. Thank you very much, Adam. It's harder for me to see it on Subscribestar, so thank you for saying it. Otherwise, I might have missed it. So much appreciated. Right. So where were we? Yes, this is moving forward. Britain has shown a bit more permissiveness than other markets, which is partially why American International wanted to give Hammer the money to make this in Britain. They figured we'd be a little bit more lax about it than the American audiences, and John Trevelyan certainly proved them right, having already permitted a certain amount, including, as we said, the killing of Sister George, which already starred Madeleine Smith. The way was very much paved for the vampire lovers.
Oh, crap. Excuse me a minute. My cat's getting into something.
Okay. The best segue. All right. How are we doing, chat? Yes, agreed. Hello, Mr. Gently Benevolent. Yes, Harry is the best Spice Carl. You could make a good case for Beau as well, I would say. Book review, absolutely. I will go through it on the topic. We'll enjoy ourselves the Hammer Glamour book. And St. Thomas Aquinas, thank you very much. Good to see you in the chat. Yes, John Trevelyan, absolutely not taking your line there. And cat foreshadowing. Yeah. I'll say this now, guys. There is an absolutely amazing cat in this film. Where is it? I saved it because I want you to all increase your scores. There it is. Now, tell me, chat. This cat is worth an extra burger in the scores, right? Come on. Look, he's blepping. He's blepping right there. He's absolutely massive. So I'm going to check. Maybe if you just do like your scores like X burgers +1, and then I know the cat burger is included.
Big old forest cat.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely fabulous. Well, we're 40 minutes in. We probably should actually tell people what, we've talked about the BBFC, we've talked about the sort of nexus of horror production. We should probably quickly mention that there's also the involvement of Elstree in this, and also some more adventurous photography. I've got the saved here. For instance, this is not the external of Bray Studios. This is the externals of Moore Park Mansion. You'll probably be quite familiar with this, actually. It'll be setting off a fair bit of, hey, I know that place. It's rocked up in a fair few. It tends to happen. But we should probably actually tell people what happens in this movie. So, Murgy, are you good to do the sort of 2-minute summary?
Sure. It opens with the Baron hunting the Karnstein vampire. He kills her, and then it switches over some decades later. Keep wanting to call him Grand Moff Tarkin. Peter Cushing, as the general, is holding a ball at his mansion, and his daughter is dancing with her fiance, and all of a sudden black coach pulls up, and Countess walks out with her daughter. It's Ingrid Pitt as the daughter. What's she known as at that point? Marcia.
Yeah, Marcia. Indeed.
And the man in black comes in and tells the Countess that, one of your relatives is dying. You must go see them. And she sets up with the general to leave Marcia there. She tells Marcia, stay with the general. And Marcia, the ball ends, and Marcia basically seduces the general's daughter, who catches anemia and eventually dies. And then Marcia moves on, and she seduces her way into another house. And Marcia, now Carmilla, falls in love with Emma and wants to make her hers, is the easiest way of saying it. And the girl is Emma, a pretty little redhead.
As seen here. I'm just saying, I see waifu is in the chat. I'm just going to say, if you're looking for a makeover style, like a new style, I'm just saying this could catch on.
Yeah, the Emma starts coming down with anemia, and she's the butler notices what's going on, and he seems to know that it's vampirism doing it. So he finds a cross, puts it on her, and fills the room with garlic flowers. Carmilla basically freaks out and seduces Madame Peridot. So that Madame Peridot can have the garlic flowers and the cross removed. And
just a pause, Murgy. Patrick Batman, note, we covered Emma, who's Peter Cushing's general character's daughter. The character is a general, not just... Anyway.
His niece, Laura.
Oh, it was a niece. Apologies.
That's the first girl that dies, is Laura.
Apologies, niece. Okay, yes, but yeah, we did mention, don't worry. It's just because the pattern sort of repeats on the next one, which is how you get the vibe that it's most definitely a scam that they run on the gentry.
Mm-hmm. Hunting for new women to fill out the Karnstein family.
But she moves straight in, makes herself comfortable, and don't worry, I've got it. I've saved us. We're YouTube proof here. TCG would have loved that.
Yeah. The seduction ensues, and the more Emma gets seduced, the sicker she gets. And there's a scene outdoors. It's, why don't you join me in the sun? It's lovely. It's refreshing. It makes me feel better. I prefer the shade. Sunlight hurts my eyes. And it's one of those shots that you aren't expecting with a Hammer film with the lovely golden light.
I was wondering if I have a... I don't think I've got a cap of that.
But that was one of
liking it.
Yeah, that was one of the scenes that really caught my eye with the brightness and the warmth rather than the cold gothic that I'm used to with Hammer films. Let's see. Carmilla invites seduces Renton the butler. Who's
Renton, who is being a total Chad, holding the line, resisting the henpecking women, and keeping the house in order.
It's Peridot, who's the vampire, and he's taking all the steps, and he eventually gets seduced, and Emma's room is freed from the cross and freed from the garlic flowers. From there, it moves very, very quickly. The fiance or the suitor goes to find the general, meets him on the road, tells him what's going on. The Baron's with him, and the Baron...
The innkeeper follows for some reason.
Hey, the more the merrier.
I mean, he does look like... He really looks like an innkeeper.
The innkeeper knows what's going on, so muscle is muscle. And the suitor rushes back to the house, and Carmilla is taking Emma out of the house, and Madame Peridot starts begging to come with them, and Carmilla kills her, and then the suitor steps up and basically uses his dagger as a cross, and Carmilla turns into mist and floats away to the castle where the general and the Baron have set up a trap for her, and all's well that ends well in the end. She's staked, but the man in black, it cuts to him briefly with him sneering at them. So you know it's not over yet. And credit rolls.
Credit does indeed. Well, there's also, for my reading, we need to point out there's a quick return to show that Blumenek, what's her name?
Emma.
Thank you. Stay to me. Just like Madeleine Smith. There we go. Emma is once again in the arms of her suitor. Very important thematically. Very important. And then we go to a quite interesting ending shot. with the vampire defeated, her portrait now starts to decay. So I gabbled on for absolutely ages about the BBFC and the extent of lesbianism. I mean, I would point out that overall, you're clearly being baited. Patrick Batman, absolutely, yeah. There's some Dorian Gray ideas. I'm going to point out quite a few influences on this. It's not just Carmilla, which they sort of seemed, from reading the summary on Wikipedia, they did seem to sort of chop the story up and shift it around, quite a lot. However, the lesbianism, completely essential. It cannot be removed, as we know. Thanks, John Trevelyan. I'm not even that mad. I'm just annoyed that it's such a bad argument for it. Just honestly, just say it's artistically justified. It's thematically justified. But just like, we can't take that out of the book. American Psycho is there like, am I a joke to you? It's like they kept the title and the character name. And anyway, I won't get into it. But yes, a cool idea. But there was just something I noticed, and I might get in a little bit of trouble for this one, but I think it's ambiguous enough with the shadows. And we are all adults here, chaps. There were just sort of moments in addition to the sapphic scenes that I thought were maybe a bit lowbrow and unnecessary. I'm thinking particularly when that niece is examined. So everyone sort of crowds around her, right? They're checking on her. There's Cushing looking nervous. And the doctor checks her out, but he pulls the dress down. Now, shown the shot where the booba is slightly obscured by shadow, so, hopefully we'll be okay. But my point is, it is really quite unnecessary.
Quite gratuitous.
Gratuitous, I would say, even before, they spend a lot of the film sort of baiting us. Like, again, with the same character, we're baited with the kind of, the way Ingrid Pitt delivers it is a sort of very much, is she going to move in? Is she going to move in? Are we going to see anything? I think they spend quite a lot of time sort of working up to that, even until, you get this scene with... No, Mr. Gently Benevolent, this is a family-friendly stream. Leslie Russell raises an interesting point about the painting decaying. Now, obviously, that is a bit of a call back to the picture of Dorian Gray. We should notice that this is an idea that Hammer has played with. So in Dracula, just because we watched that last week, you'll notice that one of the vampires, when staked, rotted and aged incredibly quickly. I don't think we got to see... No. We saw that... I've got to remember the names of the wrong way round. Lucy was taken out but didn't do the rotting. But then I guess she had only been freshly turned. But the idea of the vampire suddenly rotting after being killed was interesting. However, the painting is a new idea. As we'll cover, there are quite a few ideas, but yeah, I'm trying to... I just don't recall how it is in the vampire sequels, and I haven't seen many of the vampire horror sequels. So, sorry, the Hammer vampire sequels. Oh, hang on. Patrick Batman sent in £5 saying, "Thank you very much, Patrick. Arthur Daly would have gotten Terry to come over and sort it out, but is this a Minder reference?" But Dennis Wharton was busy fighting Christopher Lee in Scars of Dracula the same year. That is an old TV reference. I'm afraid I don't get, Patrick. I think that's the Minder. Is it Minder? Was it? That's really... Someone else is going to know. If you get that, kudos. I'm afraid I don't know. We like our obscure references on this channel, but I'm afraid that was over my head. However, I very much appreciate the £5. I can... Can't you just feel it? the Hammer Glamour book. We've almost got it. I think we've got that now. I think we're now working towards the book exclusively on Hammer, which should have more detail. Wonderful. The library, it grows. Thank you for feeding the library, Patrick. There we go. Yeah, so overall, it's a much more, it's like explicitly sexual tone. Like this scene, that scene then leads into this as sort of very, I mean, just unrealistic wrestling on the bed. And even so, you sort of wonder, is that where it leaves off? But it goes much, much further until like a few minutes later, there is a full-on seduction scene.
Yeah. Starts with kissing and nuzzling and ends up with Ingrid Pitt licking her belly button effectively.
Oh, are you thinking like this one?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that one caught me out. I was not expecting. I did find this a lot more graphic than anything I was expecting from a Hammer movie, I've got to say. I really did think that it was going to be just a little bit of, I don't know, kissing and nuzzling. I didn't think we'd see like this full on, like. I mean, at the same time, like, so she pulls her dress down, revealing Madeleine Smith's ample assets. But then at the same, which felt a lot more than anything I expected to see. But then at the same time, I'm trying to think of how to say this. The handling of the scene from that point onwards did feel quite constrained. If you get me, like the camera just sort of moves in on Madeleine Smith as she looks almost I want to say detached, and she's very passive. She's basically letting Ingrid Pitt do everything to her. You know?
Well, they've been reading Gothic romance. Ingrid Pitt's been reading Gothic romances to Emma, and Emma's enthralled by them, but Carmilla's like, no, it does nothing for me. I'm jealous of the man. I'm jealous of, and that's where the seduction starts. And then the seduction of Madame Peridot is done in camera or in shadow play rather than very blatant.
Yes, I am trying to remember if there's much more to the Peridot scene than just her stepping out of her dress in silhouette. Maybe let's come back to that, because that one felt a lot more supernatural, whereas this scene I think is actually quite interesting. I know some people are going to be like, this is not meant to be analysed, it's meant to be enjoyed in other ways. Away with you, British style commenter. I think you make a really interesting point that yes, she has been consuming the romance novels.
She doesn't quite know what to do. It's not what she envisioned.
Yeah, I want to like contrast this. Like, I think we can make sense of this if we compare it to how this might be played today, or maybe we could even point to like the 1992 Dracula. Now in that one there is this sort of idea of a sexual tension creating an almost psychic storm around the residents, and you see Mina and Lucy sort of quickly but passionately make out. And like in that film, and in something like, well, how about the Fear Street trilogy, the aforementioned one, in those the idea is like that there is a female sexuality that is kept down, waiting to burst out. Like that's the more modern idea. This is more she's like got the regular womanly role and womanly instincts. Sorry, Emma, that is. However, that role is being subverted, if you get me. So she remains a target, but she's definitely someone who is being led astray. You see the difference I'm trying to get there. I've possibly timed this badly if you're having a coughing fit. Chat, let me know if you if that makes sense to you. This is what I'm trying to say is like this is a film almost warning about risky influences, as many Dracula stories do, as many vampire stories do. This is a film where it's a warning about being led astray. Mergy, you're back. Did that difference that I was trying to lay out make sense?
I was in the other room. My sister called. So.
Oh, apologies. I was just trying to say, like, one interest in short, the interesting thing for me about the scene, about the passivity of Emma, is like this is not the modern version. The modern version would be that Emma has a strong sexuality that has been trodden down, that's waiting to burst out, and that's how it's been portrayed in a few cases. But this film doesn't do that at all. This film is in no way trying to say that she has basically a male sex drive.
No,
if only she could express it. This is no, she's tender and eager for romance, and that is what, and therefore can be easily manipulated, which is what is happening here. It's like it's an active warning against malign influence.
Yeah, she's innocent. She wants romance. She wants the courting relationship, whereas Carmilla is a predator, plain and simple.
Yeah, and very much like Dracula, a predator moving in aristocratic circles, except as a woman, she's able to inveigle herself that much more easily, which makes her sort of a much more insidious threat, I think.
Yeah, she passes naturally through brain fart.
Through society. Let's switch to this lovely image, because I thought this was amazing. And did you were also believing that she was sincere, right? That she really does care for Emma.
She doesn't so much care for Emma. She wants Emma to be part of her life. Emma, as the film went on, it became pretty clear to me, in my opinion, that Emma was going to be her prize, her possession. She's going to take what she wants.
Good. We're on the same page. Like, I'm thinking of that sort of finale where she's leaving Peridot, but she wants to take Emma. I mean, she is someone who you have to remember has lost her original family. She's clearly palling around with the man in black and the woman posing as her mother. But I think she's in need of someone. Like, the relationship between them must have some kind of strain. You know, she doesn't bring in, she doesn't seem to share any of her victims with like the man in black or the other woman. They seem to be just more like handlers for her. That's how I was reading it.
Yeah, Emma is the prize. Yes, she loves Emma seemingly for her innocence and wanting to keep her with her always. You're right about her family being killed off and she doesn't have anything of her own. And as Patrick Bateman put it, it's selfish love.
Yes. Woman without normative family model ends up gay. What did Hammer mean by this? What did Hammer mean by this? No, it's an interesting spin on some of the energy that was still in Dracula, I think. But it is sort of why I thought it was so important at the end that they showed Emma back in the arms of a suitor.
Yeah. Give me a second here.
No worries.
Right.
It had to show that she had, been restored to the path, which was something I liked very much. I'm going to give Mergu a minute there. What do you reckon, chat? Is it devious ongoing stuff there? What I might move us to, just continuing this analogy, let's just make it very obvious here. Some of the interesting, very base themes here. Well, let's remember this is an 1870s novel, Irish novel. And it's about the threat coming in, this threat of subversion, this almost like cuckoo-like force is coming in from the aristocracy. Like this whole scam that they run relies on the high trust society that they have in the gentry. It's very an interesting point, especially when you consider it's coming from an Irish source, given the relationships between England and Ireland and our not exactly amazing history with that country. I would tell you more, but for some reason British schooling never focuses on it, with far more important topics that we have to cover over and over and over in schooling. Did I feel like John Finch was underutilized? Well, very possibly, because I have to remember who John Finch was. Was that the suitor? If it was the suitor, let me just confirm.
He was
Carl Eppert. Yeah, so that's a suitor, isn't it? Yes, it is. I did. I very much did. He's, how can I say? He's got his role, and we sort of know what his role is, but it fits slightly awkwardly in this story because both Peter Cushing and Carl would normally be a lot more of the focus, but the story is really following Carmilla a lot closer. So I feel they do even though they're sort of crucial to the story, because the focus isn't there, they do drop out of it. So you could fairly say it's a little bit rote when they come back to do the roles we expect them to do, because we just haven't followed them that much.
Well, as I said before, or off in the green room, they could have added 20 minutes and fleshed out some of the characters a bit more, and the rushing of the plot at the end. They could have fleshed out Carl. They could have fleshed out the general and the barons setting up the trap. But I think you're right. They were telling it from Carmilla's point of view for the most part.
Yeah, well, let's remember also, like this Hammer, they keep their stuff under 90 minutes every time, much to Devontae's disapproval. They do not do a long film. So yeah, you and I watching this, it's sort of 90 minutes. Come on, guys. You can give us a little subplot. You could cut a few things out and build on it, but I don't know. It's something about time. They're clearly making them to go in a double bill. I don't know what this double billed with, actually. That'd be an interesting one to check. I think later it ran as a double bill with Lust for a Vampire, understandably, but I don't know what it ran with on original release.
I don't know either.
While we're looking at that, it does. Sorry, I was going to finish off the reading, so let's continue it. So we've got the theme of the corruption via the aristocracy, which is very interesting. Bit of a classic, also working like Dracula, but it's particularly important in the case of Hammer, because Hammer has an aspect of it that makes it so cozy, which is that effectively an upper class English chap is usually going to be your voice of reason. And if people follow him, things will probably turn out all right. It's reassuring that that's where the expertise is. It's rather lovely. Oh, there's something else I just noticed here. I don't know if you caught this. So this is meant to be in Styria, right? Now, in the ballroom dance scene, I did note, I'm pretty sure this is a soundstage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just maybe they filmed it in Moore Park Mansion. Maybe this is the ballroom of Moore Park Mansion.
Don't know.
Yeah, the dimensions of the room to me make it look like it's a bit of a soundstage, and they certainly had the money to do a better set. But do you notice this chap here?
The Sikh?
Yeah. It's like, well, would he be Sikh? Would they have that knowledge to sort of mark a Sikh guy, or would they think he's just sort of like a Indian high class chap?
It's
very sort of like, I mean, apologies, history fans. I don't know my history. I get kind of like just Raj vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the time wise, it feels a little bit off, especially geographically. Like this feels a lot more sort of Victoriana than, you know, what this is meant to be, which is 19th century
Austria.
mid-Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, the Raj, the feel of the Raj, the the Peshawar Lancer officer in full.
Do you think that's what he is?
That's the uniform.
Yeah, just thought he was an interesting inclusion that I noticed. But yeah, just a slight odd vibe in just trying to place this sort of geographically and time wise. But what can you do? So we got that aspect. Basically, the need to have the primacy of a pure aristocracy and guard against subversion there, because when that is subverted in a high trust society, oh my goodness, it affects everyone. And then what the idea, I mean, this is very obvious in vampire stuff. What is it that keeps Emma safe? Let's go for this tab. I'm sorry I don't have it.
And a bejeweled cross.
Yeah, I should have got a cap, a screen cap from, they show in bed like a close-up of the cross, then they zoom out and, blur it so the focus is on the garlic flowers. AKA, what keeps her safe? Faith and tradition. Based points there, vampire lovers. Very good. Very good.
Did you notice the cross was peridot and effectively diamonds, I guess.
I didn't. It was I noticed it was very jeweled rather than the kind of plainer one, but I don't know. Is there significance?
The green jewel was peridot by the cut. And Madame Peridot, when Carmilla gives her the cloak pin, and it's a similar piece.
Okay. No, I hadn't really connected those. Oh dear, hang on. We're getting some terrible puns here about our turban wearing chap. Hide and seek. Seek and
destroy.
They seek him here. They seek, guys. If you don't stop making seek puns, I'm gonna have turban you.
Oh.
Sorry guys, sorry. Couldn't resist it. Okay. So there's what were we saying? What keeps us safe? Faith and tradition, very based film. And there's also this film gets a sort of act which really focuses on like the tensions in the house, and I absolutely love this stuff. Basically, the guy was holding firm, giving orders. the kind of subtleties of he can't really overrule Madame Peridot, but he says he's on doctor's orders. I loved this bit, that battle of wills and battle of manners.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that. How did you feel about that?
I like the scene in the bar when the butler is in the bar just complaining about things, and Emma's sick, she's anemic, you'd think there's a vampire here. And the bartender, do not joke about that. We don't joke about that here. And
it's a recall of how can I say? It's sort of reinforce the idea of actually the traditional knowledge is important.
Mm-hmm. And the butler realizing that, yes, indeed, there's a vampire in the house, and he's got to go track it down and save Emma.
Yes. So the excellent Renton, who for me looks a heck of a lot like Sean Bean.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was really distracting me. I just saw Sean Bean the whole time. That is Harvey Hall. He actually turns up in the whole Karnstein trilogy. So it's like he was booked for a long weekend. Might as well. He turns up again as obviously a different character in Lust for a Vampire. In that, he's Inspector Heinrich. And in Twins of Evil, he was Franz. I can't place him, but then never mind. He was also in The Mask of the Red Death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was just looking around. It was Ingrid Pitt who is in an Amicus movie, not Madeleine. So she was in the, I would say, disappointing The House That Dripped Blood. She's in the story with John Pertwee, which has John Pertwee dressed like a pimp. It's absolutely amazing. I love it. Yes. And, Dr. Prepper, you're stealing my analysis. Yes, there's an implication that all things are falling apart with the man of the house being absent. Absolutely true, absolutely based. Without the leadership, it all goes wrong. Yes. You know, the chap can hold the line, the maid takes his orders, but he knows he has to go around the henpecking whammon with the doctor's authority. Oh, good stuff, good stuff. But what makes it all fall apart? He starts simping for ethos. That's Eastern European thoughts, obviously.
Oh, God.
Yeah. No ethos. Not even once.
Yeah, he's beguiled and bedazzled by Carmilla's charms and her hypnosis.
Yes, yes. Well, she very much, we know she has hypnotic powers, so maybe it's not entirely his fault, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, yes. Poor guy, it's his downfall. He gets chomped. Just like the Doctor, he gets chomped. We see quite a few people chomped in this.
Mm-hmm. Carmilla's a busy beaver.
Phrasing.
Unintentional, but hey, if it fits.
Yes. Yeah, gosh. I mean, Ingrid Pitt she seemed extremely confident to me. I would also say Madeleine Smith seemed extremely confident to me.
Yeah, there's a...
I'll go back to this nice image of them because I really like this one. This, you know, that Hammer aesthetic. It's trees in the background, but to me it looks like a castle.
Well, I did a little bit of research. I went to IMDb and in the trivia, and then I looked it up, and they were right. Let me read this off.
Mm-hmm.
It's a column from Den of Geek. Ingrid Pitt said in a 2009 column she wrote for Den of Geek that when it comes to nude scenes, the director asked Madeleine Smith and me if we wanted a closed set. It didn't bother me one way or another because I've always been a bit of an exhibitionist, so I had no problem letting people see me naked. Maddie Smith, being very British, was a little more nervous about prancing around in the nude. So we had a closed set. producers Harry Fine and Michael Style were a bit peeved about this because they were barred from set too. They thought it was the producers' perks to watch what was going on.
Deeply subversive.
Then one day I was walking to the set wearing just a dressing gown with nothing on underneath when I saw them coming in the opposite direction wearing a doleful look. As I went past them, I opened my dressing gown and said, "Wee!" There was a spring in their step and as they went on their way.
Deeply subversive. Deeply subversive indeed. Yes. Yeah, Ingrid Pitt in this, we should say she's I think she's got a little more confidence because she's got a more storied background.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of the old Jennifer Connelly touch here. You know, she's she's got the background in Eastern Europe. Her family left Eastern Europe in the early mid-century. She initially married a GI, actually, an American GI, and then came to Britain, and then she had 2 more marriages. But she'd got a fair bit of experience under her belt. So I just think I see in that confidence, I just see that sort of German, Polish unabashedness, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But also fair bit older. I mean, she's meant to be a 24-year-old, I believe, but she was 34 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Madeleine, who I'll have to work it out. I think she was, okay, so she was, let's go, 60, no, 50, so she was 21. I think they're meant to be around the same age, but I think, you know, the age gap is quite noticeable.
Yes, Ingrid Pitt definitely had the laugh lines going on. And
I mean, in this, you just like, there is a notable age difference, I think. So that added to the sort of surreality of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So Ingrid Pitt has this confidence that I really quite like. And to me, it sort of explained other stuff from her in her career, like in The Wicker Man, where she just sort of insists she turns up, and then she happily filmed a naked bath scene just like this for no reason. Completely gratuitous bath scene. And having seen this movie, it sort of makes sense. Whereas I think Madeleine Smith, as I said, would maybe be a bit more divisive. So I wanted to ask you, what did you think of Maddie's acting in this?
It was okay. Some parts were really good. Some were very wooden, almost flat.
I was going to ask if you thought she was like wooden and trying to play too sort of bright-eyed and almost dull-like.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, is it deliberate, or was she just maybe a little inexperienced and so was playing it like that?
I don't know.
It's hard to tell, isn't it?
Yeah. When she's waking up from the dreams and screaming, she's very good. And, the seduction scenes playing the innocent, I thought that was okay. The garden scene, she did well, but most of the rest of the time she was on screen, it was kind of like, okay, she's there. She's eye candy. Yeah,
I mean, unashamedly, I will simp. I think she's absolutely beautiful. The highly preened eyebrows, I thought, were sort of slightly odd choice, but you know, she's absolutely gorgeous. You know, picture perfect. I think just maybe the role possibly didn't ask as much of her, so it's sort of hard to know how good the skills were. I thought she was pretty darn good, to be honest. A scene like this, I thought she was giving it a lot of expressiveness.
Mm-hmm. I really don't know if it was her or the direction. Really don't know.
I think it'd be fair to say that maybe a lot of Hammer isn't asking for a particularly complex performance uniformly. Like Cushing in this, I don't think was asked to do a lot. Whereas I think actually Renton, the butler, had a much more interesting role, a much more challenging role. Ingrid Pitt obviously had to carry a lot in this.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't really say, oh, as Fez has just come back, he missed this other prime Britisher moment. There we go. There was something else I wanted to cover, if you don't mind, just of other influences I noticed sneaking in. So as well as we talked about the much more complex opening that we saw in this, much more stylish, things that felt a lot more European. Like I just thought was a bit more sophisticated, a bit more expressive, dreamlike. I noticed a few other influences cropping up, as well as stuff like, so the more events, like when she fades out, that's like a big change to the law. The vampires in their shrouds is very dreamlike, change to the law. But I also noticed stuff like, particularly in this scene, vampire POV shot, we got a stalker cam.
And I recognize that cabin.
Oh,
Twins of People.
It is indeed. Yeah,
and
I mean,
if you go back to the portico shot where she's overlooking the drive,
portico shot overlooking the drive is something I just showed
in the red
you.
dress.
Okay, hang on. Hello. There we go.
It's one that I caught in the film, and then this just reminded me. You notice how they've covered part of the circle in front of the house with dirt, and then from there on it's paved.
Yes. Try not to pay too much attention, guys. We'll cover it up. They do that a lot for streets nowadays when they need to date them, just cover them in dirt so you don't have to see the tarmac. Classic. Yeah, I think that's definitely a Twins of Evil set. I didn't notice as much Bray. For anyone doing Bray watching, I thought that... hang on, where is it? I think this may be back in the classic Bray Manor set, but they kept the angles very tight, and they were such unusual angles, I just wasn't sure. I caught maybe bits of architecture that I recognised, but I didn't want to freeze frame it. I probably could have. Versus Twins of Evil, which very clearly used the classic Bray inside Manor shot twice. I don't know if you caught that. So obviously it was the Karnstein Manor.
Oh, yeah.
Karnstein
Manor is definitely a Bray set.
Yeah. But they also redressed the same manor hall to be the religious order's headquarters. But they just stacked the chairs up against the staircase. So you couldn't... They disguised it quite well, I thought, because they even changed the shape of the arches on the balcony to disguise it. But did a good job, but not good enough to prevent our Bray detecting, or we've got Braydar. We've got Braydar Murgoot. Way. Good times, good times. So what else do we have? Yes, so we had the POV shot. So we got a stalker cam. This is an innovation. I mean, we had Psycho, which had some POV. We had Peeping Tom, 1960, had some POV. So it's not like entirely out there. But I don't know if you noticed in this killing, we got the Bernard Herrmann Psycho strings. Yeah. It's only in this killing, by the way. It's only in this one. Is that great stuff? there was some fun with a sort of shadow reaching over the sleeping woman as well. That looked lovely and artistic. But the woman's reaction was quite odd. Like she was suddenly quite happy to see us, Carmilla in her bed, and then to be offed. Oh, dear. Odd reaction. In fact, I'd got a note here. There are a few of what I think we could say are maybe like the classic Hammer odd reaction. Like in Dracula, when at the start when Jonathan Harker turns up and the vampire woman, played by Valerie Gawn, runs up to him and is like, "I'm being held hostage, you must help me," and then has to run off. And he's like, "Anyway, Count Dracula, what were you saying?" And just kind of completely doesn't react to it at all.
So very British reaction.
Yeah, I think we had a little bit of that in some of the reactions to that Emma has to Carmilla being a complete weirdo, but maybe less egregious, less notable.
Yeah. I don't know. The set pieces were done very well. It's just they did the art well. One thing that was mentioned in the trivia and I actually caught was the music was anachronistic. There were pieces from the early 19th and late 19th century, and this is set in the late 1700s. It's just one of those that you kind of look at it and go, something's not right about that song for the period. It doesn't matter, just carry on with the movie.
Well, I didn't intend this, Murgoot, but you know, in the Fear Street trilogy that we were talking about earlier, I had that exact problem. It's set explicitly in 1994. They tell you it's 1994. The part 1, 1994. And then they play songs from the Prodigy's for second album, which came out in 97. They play tracks from Garbage that came out in 1998. Drove me absolutely loopy. And I was called a pedant by a journo. A disgusting journo. Anyway, you're far classier than me, so I didn't catch the same musical anachronisms. Well done, you.
Well, watching the film, I knew something was wrong. And then I read the trivia, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. I know exactly. Yeah, okay. Something just hit me off. My father was a music teacher, so I learned a lot about classical and modern music, and a lot about marching band music. There's only so much John Philip Sousa you can listen to at one time.
I've been spared that, I'm afraid, Murgoot. I've been spared it. I just don't have that education in me. There we go. We'll just leave that running for a minute. How about something else we need to make sense of? In this very scene, set in Styria, which I believe is Austria, yeah? Present-day Austria. In this very scene, Emma is struggling to pronounce Augenbrau. She's studying German. She is in Austria.
Austria, yep.
What's going on, big guy?
I have no clue about that one, aside from I haven't read Carmilla for many, many, many years, and I don't know if Emma's supposed to be Irish or English. I don't know, but it didn't make much sense to me.
They do explicitly say that they are in Styria, so they haven't reset it. They haven't moved it. So you just have to ask, this isn't a thing where we are hearing English, but they are meant to be speaking German and it's just translated for us. They really are not speaking German in Austria. Like, what's going on, big guy? I need to know. I need to know. And also, is Augenbraue that hard to say?
No. I mean, I could sound it out if I saw it written down. I mean, German pronunciation isn't that bad unless there's a few characters that you have to worry about, like the extended S looks like the big cursive.
Oh yeah, the scharfes S. Yeah, that'll catch you. People, I can understand people getting caught by the umlauts and the diareses, you know, but it's not like she.
Umlauts aren't that hard. The other couple of the other accents are a bit interesting, but
Yeah, it's, if you know them, you're fine. But again, it's not like she was. It's not like it was Sehenswürdigkeiten, you know. It was Augenbraue. You're like, come on. Anyone can manage that. The Offspring managed Gunther Lieben Glauben Globen. You know, she can manage Augenbraue. Honestly, state.
what, ALGENBRAU?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty simple.
AUGN. Yeah,
As
Augenbraue.
an
Yeah,
English
it's a
speaker,
slightly
I might
different
say-
R, but I suppose the main question we still should just be more stressed on. We should be more stressed by why is she learning German? This makes no sense, but it's part of that theme that we talked about where Hammer. They may have named a place, but the vibe is generally sort of ambiguous Europe. Like, don't think about it too much exactly when it happens or exactly where it happens. Just, it's an age of castles and not chainsaws, all right? Just sort of go with it. It's just a vibe. Hammer is a vibe.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's supposed to be late 18th century, but they have gas lamps. That's kind of, but they had to do that for photography.
Yeah, John, I think they sampled Def Leppard. I'm darn sure. The first place I heard it was at the start of Pretty Fly for a White Guy, and I heard it later elsewhere. Fun times.
Yeah, it was Def Leppard initially. They
All right. There was a tiny extra detail to jump ahead to the end for just one last thing, and then if there's anything else you had caught, it was during this finale. Notice the return of the men to restore order. Based. The staking. Read into that what you want. But
and
did you notice
connection to Emma?
Sorry?
The psychic connection to Emma. Emma's feeling everything that's going on.
They like that. They like playing that a bit, the psychic connection. I quite liked it. The intercutting is we get some weird vampire lore in this. Doesn't turn up again. And well, it's referenced obliquely in Twins of Evil, but like the shroud thing is not a major part of it. It's just that a vampire is resurrected wearing one of their shrouds, but it's not remarked upon. I did notice in this that I believe that's a dummy.
I believe you're right.
And it caught me out, and I just sort of wondered, hang on, it looks a bit weird in that shot. And I think it was to kind of mentally just sort of prepare you for the shot where that's the final head you see.
That head wasn't that great.
No, it had to be done quickly. But yeah, that's sort of all the points I had on the Vampire Lovers. I don't know if there's another thing did you have anything else on this film?
Not really. Aside from the ties as it is to being the first part of a trilogy and only having seen the first and the third.
Mm.
I didn't even know this was a trilogy until you brought it up.
Well, it caught me out as well. And I saw it third part first. So,
So, yeah.
well, in that case, shall we discuss why both of us massively prefer Twins of Evil?
It wasn't just because of the twins. It was better directed. It was smoother writing.
Sorry, Mergu, something very important has actually been raised that we completely went over. We didn't mention these kind of more impressionistic dream sequences. Thank you, Patrick Batman. We totally glossed over that. Yeah, again, so just a quick note. That obviously that felt very new. That's a step up. There is nothing like those dream sequences with the change in color, the impressionistic angle, the more ambitious editing. Nothing like that in Curse of Frankenstein or Dracula. So we've seen a stylistic jump up. At the same time, it's I wondered if it was meant to be a wolf. Like they stepped away from Dracula doing any kind of transformation. And the first one, so it was surprising to see it in there. So what did you think was going on in those dream sequences?
Just imagining the cat biting you. I mean, Ingrid Pitt, her makeup made her look very feline in a way.
I said to you that she really reminded me of Melania Trump.
Too short.
Maybe I'll get her up again so that people can just judge. I mean, you I don't know why I need to. I mean, you've seen plenty of Ingrid Pitt tonight, eh? But yeah, it's an interesting element. I don't know why they went it that way. Like, I could understand if it was like the shroud of the vampire going over, but it didn't look like that. It distinctly looked furry. Oh, come on now, Patrick Batman. Deeply subversive. Deeply subversive. I mean, if you are, gosh, okay. I hesitate to do this reading because I don't think it exactly fits, but this idea of the sort of the hair being there as a sort of source of horror and adult horror might be a sort of pubertal thing, but like, and therefore it's a fear of womanhood or fear of the womanly role, but that feels harder to really connect to. I mean, the adults, really, the 18-year-old, it doesn't quite fit. If it's more just like this sort of beastly brute, a fear of like the husband coming in like this beastly brute, maybe, but mostly, I've got to be honest, I felt it was an odd choice. It's not exactly the way I would like them to do the dream sequence, but I do appreciate that they were ambitious with it. I mean, did they work for you?
Yeah. The dream sequences, the first one kind of took me out of it, and then it just clicked, and then from there on I expected a little bit more from them, but it was fairly hallucinatory, fairly dreamlike. So it didn't really bother me.
Yeah. In terms of like hallucinatory weird stuff, I much preferred the shrouded vampires. Like, they just looked so weird. I loved it. Like, they really looked like they just did not belong, that they were otherworldly. I was a huge fan of that. And then they do something really cool with that idea in Twins of Evil, even if they ultimately drop the idea of the vampire needs their shroud before they can return, which I think is kind of a silly idea, to be honest. I didn't really like it, but what can you do?
Yeah. Back to Twins of Evil, my main sticking point was this is set in the 19th century, and there's Puritans running around. um, with the full Dutch collar and the
let me get that collar. Here we go. Oh, look at him. Oh, since we're talking about this outfit, we have to mention something. We nearly forgot this. The fact that Peter Cushing is quite removed from this story. There was a reason behind that. Murgy, did you want to just quickly mention that for people?
Well, his wife was getting ill, and about the time of the ending of the first movie and the second movie, he had to drop out because his wife was fully ill. And then by the third movie, Cushing was back in action.
Mm. Yeah, the NREAB kindly linked me to a very good series about the history of the Hammer Frankenstein movies. They made a point of that, about how you get a Cushing coming back who's visibly thinner, visibly more weary and angular, and how they managed to work with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that showed up here, basically. He does have that smaller role in this, which isn't particularly demanding. It's notable that in that one he's learning about vampires rather than being the authority, but he does still take.
Not a vampire hunter.
No, but he still takes on the responsibility to do the killing, which I thought was interesting because, realistically, Emma's father could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
I almost wonder if it was because the audience are so trained that Peter Cushing will be in this movie, he will slay the vampire, that for that reason, he had to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe it went in a trailer or something. I didn't look at the trailer.
Yeah. In Twins of Evil, I thought the contrast was interesting of the absolute good versus the absolute evil, and Cushing was so good he was evil, and both him and Karnstein get their just desserts because both of them were killing innocent people.
Yes. Well, that's one of the things that really appealed to me. Like, it's complex because, like, we have to remember Cushing in Twins of Evil is playing this Puritan leader who's burning women constantly. He gets it wrong, but we're also in a world where unambiguously there are evil vampires who he needs to take down. So there's a move towards a sort of both sides badism, but it is more complex. But all the same, I like the move to complexity. I really absolutely loved a little bit of the old realpolitik, whereby he catches a lord of the Baron Karnstein doing his evil deeds and is like, oh, I can't do anything actually. Because this man actually has political power. He's untouchable. That created a tension that I had never seen in a Hammer before. Like, that was
I hadn't seen it either that I remember. I mean, I've watched several of them, and I vaguely remember a lot of them. But yeah, it was a far more complex story. It was better written. It was better directed.
The twins, but and in fairness, only one of them was evil. So I felt they're being hard done by. They're distinct. They do some of the twins things you expect to happen, so we're not surprised. What? Mistaken identity in the twins? Huh? Oh my god! Yeah, of course they do that. And whilst it was alluring, and there was certainly a lot of heaving cleave and camera angles that showed that to the best, it didn't feel sleazy to me in a way that the Vampire Lovers felt sleazy.
Correct. Everything was appropriate for the movie. It's what you expected. The sexy vampire goes after the sexy twin. Those scenes are meant to be. the tension between the sisters. They dress the same, but they don't act the same. It's
AKA your moral choices matter. And clear linking of bad morality to bad ends, and just good stuff. I mean, when I saw that starred, I'll admit I didn't look into it. I saw that it starred two twins who were Playboy playmates. I just thought, okay, this is going to be the filthy one. This is one of the later ones. We're probably scraping the barrel, but I should do this and sort of get a bit in about how, the quality of Hammer is said to decline. I really liked it. I mean, call me an absolute Philistine. I wouldn't say it's as good as a Dracula, but it wasn't far off for me. I thought we got some great performances.
Yeah, and the Collinson twins were lovely to look at, and they were decent actresses for...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you'd have thought, Playboy playmates, we know why they're getting the role. Yeah, I mean, they are gorgeous. They are extremely pretty, but they had good screen presence. So the good actors as well did a fine job. The cast of characters was quite interesting. The villain, well, I should maybe specify, Baron Karnstein, had a kind of like Palpatine style, I'm evil and I love being evil vibe that made him an absolute hoot.
Yeah, the whole chanting to Satan. I just laughed all the way through that. He was just chewing the scenery.
He was having such a good time with it. The random... I mean, I really wish we were talking about that movie more. Maybe we'll come back and cover it entire. I absolutely love that he had this kind of stereotypical, massive black bodyguard, and he doesn't get to say anything. So I was like, oh, okay,
well, he's had his tongue cut out.
I didn't catch that until later, and then he starts doing miming, and it caught me out completely.
Yeah,
it seemed very cruel to him, but poor guy, and bless him. I should get his name actually, because I feel like I'm absolutely stinging this guy. Hang on, he's got a very boring name like Trevor. What was it? Sorry, guys. He's Roy Stewart. He was in the Royal Shakespeare Company. He's a Shakespearean actor, and Hammer makes him basically mime like I should be careful with my words here. Let's just say do an undignified mime for his role.
Yeah, my thought was, how did von Karnstein get his hands on an Ottoman court eunuch? Because that's basically what he was.
Yes, it's such a random element, but at the same time, it was really interesting, and he had a good stage presence. So fantastic, he was a great hired goon. He was a mook. He was a mookcenary. You'll have to see it. Quick note here. Yes, I do have to correct myself, chat. I'm very sorry. Palpatine was, of course, not evil. That is Jedi propaganda. We fully back him and the order and purpose he brought to an unstable galaxy. In time of great need, he was a source of continuity and purpose, giving people that sense of identity that helped them feel grounded in a galaxy that could feel overwhelming and atomized. And his justified strike on Alderaan was a proportionate response in the context at the time. There we go. Also, Poe in the chat, you will be extremely welcome to come on and talk about Buffy and Angel, because obviously I love both those shows. Tell you what also needs discussing is Dollhouse. Everyone is sleeping on Dollhouse just because it was occasionally terrible. But that show has got some great ideas in it. Very ahead of its time.
I watched it when it came out, and I was disappointed because it was actually getting better as time went on, and they canceled it halfway through. But
yeah. I do admire the balls of that show to just say, you know what, we're just gonna blitz it, sod it, we're going to cram the remaining 2 seasons we'd planned into 5 episodes, and you're just going to have to go with it. Now, John Gorris, you call it Star Wars revisionism, but I think, we've already seen substantial revisions to the casualty estimates for Alderaan. Really, that they were changing all the time. All I'm suggesting is that the logic behind current estimates are fine to check as well. Come on. The Henry Webb also noting, which one of them did seem. I only noticed the dubbing on one of them, or maybe it didn't stand out consistently, but yeah. There were bits where it was noticed, very noticeable. Miss Jenny Brennan, absolutely. You would have to elder on a planet. If there are rebel men, you need to take care of them, and not just the men, but the women and the children too. Absolutely, yeah. So, what were we saying? Less sleazy vibe, more interesting power dynamics. It was slightly sloppy at the end, a little bit at me, but we're also very clearly back in Bray Studios. Maybe my biggest complaint was the fact that the witch burnings, which really should be very powerful, felt quite underplayed. There wasn't much build up to them.
Yeah, it was just she's living alone and she sees men on her off time. She's a witch, burn her, and it's my thought was he's jealous he's not getting any. But
they also had that vibe of they just had the vibe of one set and we filmed it all on one day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was literally, there's always a big crowd of people. It was the exact same place. It was mostly the same camera angles. Mm-hmm. It was pretty clear they just reused the same witch burning set and ran about 4 different women through it.
Mm-hmm.
So that made it feel slightly cheap. So I wouldn't say the directing was consistently there, but overall, I felt it was a better story with better performances, especially from Peter Cushing.
Mm-hmm.
And Ingrid Pitt, you came off a little cold in this to me. A little cold sometimes. Whereas Constant Twins, I felt were just enchanting.
Yeah. Very much so. I like the dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, so all those things combine to make, for us, Twins of Evil, the better film. So if you liked The Vampire Lovers, I've got to say, go straight on to Twins of Evil. You probably like it even more. Lust for a Vampire, you might as well complete the set and be slightly confused as to why Harvey Hall, who looks like Sean Bean's rugby playing bigger brother, is turning up over and over again in different roles. What can you do? We don't mind when Cushing does it. We can let him off. And you'll also get to see early Hammer screenwriter Jimmy Sangster directing. So why not complete the trilogy? With all that said, Mergu, shall we do our closing scores and thoughts for The Vampire Lovers?
Yeah, Vampire Lovers was fun. It was definitely a romp. Very titillating.
Mm-hmm.
Not the writing was choppy. The production was lovely. I mean, they got the scenery down. They got their set pieces, the makeup, all that was very good. The direction, I wasn't impressed. I give this a solid 7.5 with a lot of pickles, a little bit of ketchup, And some cheese just to round it out. It was cheesy in a few parts.
The Man in Black's kind of cheesy, let's be honest.
Kind of.
7.5. Okay. Yeah. I'd echo that. Whilst the theming in this is pretty good, pretty interesting, and it's coming off an interesting story. I mean, that it's that poison ivy story that's always quite interesting. I was kind of turned off by the sleazy vibe of it, which is just it's just not what I come to Hammer Horror for. Was I was impressed by the change in direction and the way it still tied itself into classic Hammer Horror iconography. Feels a little bit off, so it's interesting for me, but it is a slightly interesting changes, but it's slightly off for me, and it just was not compelling as some of the others. And certainly when I've just seen Twins of Evil, which felt like it was doing the increased booba angle in a much more pleasing way, I have to mark this one down quite a lot. Would I say watch it? I'm leaning towards maybe like a 6.
Fair.
I could maybe go 6.5, but luckily, remember, chat, while you're getting your scores in, where is it? This guy's in. We're giving a +1 burger for this cat alone, who stays on screen for quite a while and bleps. So he's going to raise my score to a 7. So 7 burgers. Heck, too much pickle. Too much pickle leaking out everywhere. Little bit of spice and definitely some cheese, but not as much as other entries. We're getting a 6 from Fez. I hope that was 6 brioche baps. Oh, yes, I see what you did, Fez. I see what you're up to. There's at least 1 burger for this mighty cat. I don't think the cat was credited, unfortunately. Back in these days, they didn't tell you who played the cat, you know. Sad. We got an 8 from Dr. Prepper. I assume that includes the cat. 7 out of 12 20-year-old Britishers. What a callback. What an inside joke callback. Oh dear. I've got a 7, 2 extra burgers for the cat from Magfrick. Fair enough. So yeah, we're okay. So I think probably for the first time, you guys are a bit warmer on this than I am. All right, no, I'm fine with it. I think TCG would have probably gone for about an 8, maybe a 7 as well. So an 8 with the cat. I think it'd have liked the booba a bit more. Yeah. Well, folks, at a very neat 2 hours, very neat 2 hours indeed. That is us. You've got the horror homework already. Next week, we are returning for The Devil Rides Out. Oh, Mima's coming in. 8 of 10 plus 3 for a kitty blep. It's a really good blep, to be honest. The fact that they didn't retake it. Like, oh no, cat's pulling a kind of weird face. Do we want to do this? Nope. It's perfect. Let's zoom in. Absolutely. So yeah, Devil Rides Out. We're going to see some fantastic Christopher Lee. I've got to make my mind up. I do feel a little bit bad, chat, that we haven't gone in for one of the many sequels. I feel I've maybe cut you short a bit there, but I may have to save that as a bonus or something, because there's quite a few new films that I want to react to, and we do want to finish off the Vincent Price arc so at the end of September. So I'll see what I can do. Tell you what, if there is a Hammer sequel, either Frankenstein or Dracula or The Mummy, that you would really like us to do, comment it on this video. and we may be persuaded. Part of the problem is, which one do we go for? Which one? I've heard good things about Taste of the Blood of Dracula. I also think Frankenstein Created Woman is quite tempting. So, yeah, you let me know.
Patrick Batman's given £5.
Absolute Chad. Thank you so much. £5 from Patrick Batman. This is all well and good, but when are we covering the real Hammer? Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. Come on now. Well, Patrick Batman, obviously, in the next arc. We're going to have a 1 arc break, and then we'll come back to it, and we will do obscure Hammer, weird Hammer. We've got to cover like the pre-1950s stuff, so we'll do one of them, and then I want us to do the weird, like, Hands of the Ripper, the Nanny. We are absolutely covering the Nanny, which is so good. And obviously you guys did request it. We will be doing Captain Kronos, so
Oh God.
has to be done. So maybe you'll get your Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires in there. All right. And 8 out of 12 from the Enriab. Yeah. Okay. We're all about the same place. Okay. Yes, The Nanny is Betty Davis. Really interesting, no supernatural, British psychological thriller from Hammer. Absolutely fascinating artifact. NHS dentist comes straight to your house. Sorry, doctor comes straight to your house. Imagine that. Absolutely baffling to us nowadays. Anyway, thank you again, Patrick, if I didn't thank you a second time. Very generous of you tonight. Much appreciated. I think I'm going to have to get that Hammer book now, aren't I? Oh, dear. What's to be done, eh? All right. Chat, thank you so much. So you got a horror homework. You've got thanks from me. You've got our thoughts and scores, and hopefully a fair amount of insight on the vampire lovers, including a longer extract from BBFC Secretary John Trevelyan than maybe anyone wanted. But that is a risk when you turn up to this chat. So thank you ever so much, folks. It's very much appreciated. Mergu, thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
A pleasure as always. And especially cheers for chatting it out and also watching Twins of Evil.
Oh, I wasn't going to miss it.
It's not it's not like Manos or Hands of Fate, is it? Once you're getting into it, it's like, oh yeah, there's a bit of a treat.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're all 90 minutes. Or barely 90 minutes, so yeah. All right, fantastic stuff. I will leave you now, chat. I hope you've got a lovely Friday ahead of you, and I hope you've got a fantastic weekend after that. Thank you for joining me tonight live. Thank you for everyone on the rewatch. And with this, I'll say goodbye. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.
#ChillGang.
There you go, TCG, missing out on the good stuff. Murgy's got you covered.